Hi, how's everybody doing today? This is Sean, and I'm here with another part of the documentary that I'm looking at, and I'm sharing this information with you. It's very important because, it's not our fault that we were born into this bullshit, but the fact of the matter is, our history has been lied. The history books and stuff. There's a bunch of stuff that's just disinformation, as the youngsters say, and it's true. There's a saying. It's an old saying. I think Alexander the Great or somebody like that said this is the winners write the history. And when you go back and look at some of these, so you could go to libraries and get old newspapers and stuff back from the days of when these wars took place and just before the wars took place, and you'll see what's going on. But when you go and especially like used bookstores, they have a lot of old books that are out of print, and they talks about some of these things these people are talking about and exposing these criminals. This is one family, folks. We're not talking about the whole Jewish population. We're talking about the Rothschild family, and that family is responsible for all the stuff that's been happening over the last 2,000 years or more. They're spoken about in the Bible. They've changed their name a few times over history, but it all runs right to here. And this, we're gonna, I'm gonna stop talking and I want you to hear what this lady's saying because it's a lot of facts. And as I say, you have to go and do your own research into stuff. And the one thing that's 100% true is God loves you, and so do I.
Mafia's secret history and blood oath to take revenge on Russia for helping Americans win the Revolutionary War and the Civil War, and their blood oath of revenge against America and Americans for winning these wars and sustaining the Union. At the Syrian Conference on Combating Terrorism and Religious Extremism December 1, 2014, in his keynote address, Veterans Today senior editor and director Gordon Duff disclosed publicly for the first time ever that world terrorism is actually due to a large international organized crime syndicate associated with Israel. This disclosure sent shockwaves at the conference and almost instantly around the world, as almost every world leader received reports of Gordon Duff's historical disclosure that same day, some within minutes. And the shockwaves from his historic speech in Damascus continue to reverberate around the world even to this very day. And now Gordon Duff has asked President Putin to release Russian intel which will expose about 300 traitors in Congress for their serious serial felonies and statutory espionage on behalf of the KHAZARIAN Mafia, KM, against America and many Middle East nations. We now know that the KHAZARIAN Mafia, KM, is waging a secret war against America and Americans by the use of false flag Gladio-style terrorism, and via the illegal and unconstitutional Federal Reserve System, the IRS, the FBI, FEMA, Homeland Security and the TSA. We know for certain that the KM was responsible for deploying an inside job, Gladio-style false flag attack on America on September 11, 2001, as well as the Murrah building bombing on April 19, 1995. 100 to 800 AD, an incredibly evil society emerges in Khazaria. Khazarians develop into a nation ruled by an evil king, who had ancient Babylonian black arts, occult oligarchs serving as his court. During this time, Khazarians become known to surrounding countries as thieves, murderers, road bandits, and for assuming the identities of those travelers they murdered as a normal occupational practice and way of life.
Something very mysterious happened in that part of the world that historians have chosen to bury.
800 AD, the ultimatum is delivered by Russia and other surrounding nations. The leaders of the surrounding nations, especially Russia, have had so many years of complaints by their citizens that, as a group, they deliver an ultimatum to the Khazarian king. They send a communique to the Khazarian king that he must choose one of the three Abrahamic religions for his people, and make it his official state religion and require all Khazarian citizens to practice it, and socialize all Khazarian children to practice that faith. The Khazarian king was given a choice between Islam, Christianity, and Judaism. The Khazarian king chose Judaism.
Judaism. The genetic research is available on the internet. Anyone can study it. You had conferences, medical conferences, which were organized to study these people, their genetic composition. They had a genetic composition which was unique in all of mankind. No people in the world were like them. This is scientific research. These people, the Khazar, chose to convert to Judaism, but they did so not for any religious reasons. They were not so much interested in the Kitab and to follow the law. They embraced Judaism for purposes of political expediency. They were sandwiched between Islam and Christianity, Byzantine Christianity, and they chose Judaism. These European Jews, if you look at the list of names of Nobel Prizes for science, for literature, would you name it? You'll find that these are people who far exceed the rest of mankind in their intellectual brilliance, in their academic achievements, in their scientific research. They are a people different from the rest of mankind. And then you find that these Khazar who became Jews also chose to become Christians. So you have the Khazar infiltrating the camp of Judaism and infiltrating the camp of Christianity as well. It is these Khazar who, having become Jews, first Jews and then Christians, who built an empire that was the most powerful in Europe and Central Asia. And when the armies of Islam had simultaneously defeated the two superpowers in the world, the Persian Empire and Byzantium, and had emerged as the most powerful military force in the world, Khazar blocked our way. We could not defeat them. And so it would be quite correct to say that the Khazar demonstrated a military power without equal in the world at that time.
Despite his agreement and promise, the Khazarian king and his inner circle of oligarchs kept practicing ancient Babylonian black magic, also known as secret Satanism. This secret Satanism involved occult ceremonies featuring child sacrifice, after bleeding them out, drinking their blood and eating their hearts. The deep dark secret of the occult ceremonies was that they were all based on ancient Baal worship, also known as worship of the owl. In order to fool the Confederacy of Nations led by Russia that were watching Khazaria, the Khazarian king melded these Luciferian black magic practices with Judaism and created a secret satanic hybrid religion, known as Babylonian Talmudism. This was made the national religion of Khazaria, and nurtured the same evil that Khazaria was known for before. Sadly, the Khazarians continued their evil ways, robbing and murdering those from surrounding countries who traveled through Khazaria. Khazarian robbers often attempted to assume their identities after they murdered these visitors, and became masters of disguises and false identities, a practice they have continued even to this very day, along with their child sacrifice occult ceremonies, which are actually ancient Baal worship. 1200 AD, Russia and the surrounding nations have had enough and take action. About 1200 AD, the Russians led a group of nations surrounding Khazaria and invaded it, in order to stop the Khazarian crimes against their people, which included kidnapping of their young children and infants for their blood sacrifice ceremonies to Baal. The Khazarian king and his inner court of criminals and murderers came to be.
I wanted to stop it there for a second because I wanted to show you what I was talking about, this book, the Book of Enoch, and he talks about this. So let me find this, and I want to share this because some of these angels Lucifer being one of them. His name is Sajiyama or something like that. I don't know how to say it. It's Greek or something like that. It's a biblical name for him. And he casts spells and he teaches people how to use spells to get things. So let me find this and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Okay, my friends. It's chapter 5 here. I'm sorry, 6. And it talks about the fall of the angels, the demoralization of mankind, the intercession of the angels on the behalf of mankind, the dooms pronounced by God on the angels, the Messianic kingdom. And then it goes, it came to pass when the children of men had multiplied that in the days were born unto the beautiful and comely daughters, and the angels, the children of the heavens, saw and lusted after them, and said to one another, come, let us choose us a wife, or us wives, for among the children of men, and begot us children. And Sajamada, which is the devil, who was the leader, said unto them, I fear ye will not indeed agree to do this deed, and I alone shall have to pay the penalty of a great sin. So he's already tricking these angels to do it. He's like, well, I know if I'm going to do it, but I don't have no faith in you guys doing it. So they all agree. He says, and they all answered him and said, let us swear oath and all bind ourselves by mutual imprecations not to abandon this plan, but to do this thing. Then they swore that all together and bound themselves by mutual imprecations upon it. And they were in all 200 who descended in the days of Jared of the summit of mountain Hermon, and they called the Mount Hermon because he had swore and bound themselves by mutual imprecations upon it. Now, each one of these angels that fell down with him and his leaders have special skills. Okay, they have different things. One can do astrology, one can do math, one can do this. But the devil himself does everything. He knows magic too, like he's doing spells. And all others together, and when they took unto them wives, each chose for himself one, and they began to go unto them and defile themselves with them, and they taught them charms and enchantments and the cutting of roots, and made them acquainted with plants, and they became pregnant, and they bare a great giant whose height was 3,000 elos, who consumed all the acquisitions of men when men could no longer sustain them. The giants turned against them and devoured mankind, and they became to sin against birds and beasts and reptiles and fish, and devour one another's flesh and drink the blood. The earth was laid accusation against the lawless ones. Okay, this is the book of Enoch talking about what these people were doing. These are the Rothschilds. They made a pact like that with the devil, which is named in this is Samaja. And then these angels, when you read about it, they all have gifts. It even says here, they taught them how to make metals of the earth. They worked the, bracelets, ornaments, all kinds of stuff that was not the makeup on eyes. And there arose much godliness, and they committed fornication, and they were laid astray and became corrupt in all the ways. Sajama taught enchantments, root cutting, and then this fellow here, Amazaroas, resolving enchantments. They were all astrology. I don't know how to say his name. Let's see. Kabbalah. Kabali. I don't know how to say that. I'm learning these words and these names. These are all biblical in Hebrew names. So in Greek and stuff. So, like I say, I read this book here, the book of Enoch, along with my Holy Bible here that I read with the King James Version, and I have other Bibles. Like, I was raised Roman Catholic, but I go by the King James Version because I think that's more accurate. And then, of course, I also read the Roman Catholic Bible because there's other chapters in that Bible that's not in this Bible. I think they have 71 gospel, and the standard has 66 or something like that. which in itself, I think personally that Jesus wrote his own gospel, and then they're finding gospels of Timothy, Judas of Asiac, that portrayed Jesus, and then they find out Judas wrote about his encounter with God, and that they were close friends, and he taught him about what's actually happening. There's levels of heaven, and the angels are coming down to sort this out along with Jesus. So let's hear some more, and I wanted you to see that because I'm reading this, and then this occult coincides. Like, why would anybody do that? Because this shit's real. This stuff is real.
Known as the KHAZARIan Mafia, KM, by neighboring countries. The KHAZARIan leaders had a well-developed spy network through which they obtained prior warning and escaped from KHAZARIA to European nations to the west, taking their vast fortune with them in gold and silver. They lay low and regrouped, while assuming new identities. In secret, they continued their satanic child blood and sacrifice rituals, and trusted Baal to give them the whole world and all its riches, as they claimed he had promised them, as long as they kept.
And these people, what they did in the 17th century is they took out all the original royalty, like all the original royalty in England, all the original royalty in France. They put a cabal against them, and any president in America that goes against trade and says, hey, we don't need to have any more imports in here. We're going to build our own stuff here, and we're going to make our own country, strong again. It's called Medicatis or Medicani type of government, where people just make their own stuff and bring little imports from other countries until they get their country strong, and then you never have more than you make, because what open trade is, a free market is, what that really is piracy. The other countries are just dumping their shit that they don't want, and they can't sell in their country to our country, and that's what's happening. If you got a country full of garbage, you go to the Dollar Tree, all garbage products, all made in China, because in other countries they can't sell it because they're using the real stuff and the good stuff. That's why when things were American made here 20, 30 years ago, even before, I was born in the 70s, I was born in 71. People knew when you bought an American-made product, that thing was going to last, for years. There's people that got freezers. I had one freezer for over 25 years. I just sold it, and this is because I moved, but it was years ago. But the fact of the matter is that McKinley got killed for that. Lincoln got killed for that. JFK got killed for that. They tried to kill Reagan for that shit. These people do not fuck around when it comes to their monies like that. They started fractional banking. I did a video on that. I showed you how that worked. You can check it out. Let's listen a little bit more, and then
bleeding out and sacrificing children and infants for him.
It spread out to Eastern Europe.
Yiddish is a Germanic language with several million Jewish speakers, today mostly in Israel and the United States. A distinct Jewish culture known as Ashkenazi appeared by the 10th century in Germany and surrounding areas.
They spread to Russia and eventually crossed the sea to the United States, and they are at the heart of the revolutions which transformed Europe from Christendom into modern Western civilization. They are at the heart of the Bolshevik Revolution in Russia, which overturned Christianity in Russia. They are at the heart of the French Revolution.
60 million Christians died from that revolution. Just to let you know. There's no bullshit. 60 million Christians and people of other faith died, but mostly Christians.
Consequence of which the back of the Christian church is broken, and they are at the heart of the creation of the Zionist movement. It is these Khazar, Jewish and Christian, who now move to the Holy Land, assisted by a strange and mysterious Jewish Holocaust. And the history of that will one day be revealed. How much was their input into the Holocaust.
The Khazarian king and his court mafia plotted eternal revenge against the Russians and the surrounding nations that invaded Khazaria and drove them from power. The Khazarian mafia invades England after being expelled for hundreds of years. To accomplish their invasion, they hired Oliver Cromwell to murder King Charles I and make England safe for banking again. This began the English Civil Wars, which raged for nearly a decade, resulting in regicide of the royal family and hundreds of the genuine English nobility. This is how the City of London was set up as the banking capital of Europe and launched the beginning of the British Empire. The Khazarian Mafia, KM, decides to infiltrate and hijack all world banking using Babylonian black magic, also known as Babylonian money magic or the secret art of making money from nothing, also using the power of pernicious usury to accumulate interest. The KM used a vast fortune to enter into a new system of banking, based on secret Babylonian black magic money magic that they claimed to have learned from the evil spirits of Baal, in return for their many child sacrifices to him. This Babylonian money magic involved the substitution of paper credit certificates for gold and silver deposits, which allowed travelers to travel with their money in a form that offered easy replacement should they lose the certificates or have them stolen. Interesting how the very problem that was started by the Khazarians also had a solution provided by them. Eventually the Khazarian king and his small surrounding court infiltrated Germany with a group that chose the name the Bowers of Germany to represent them and carry on their Baal-powered system of evil. The Bowers of the Red Shield, which represented their secret blood-based child sacrifices, changed their name to Rothschild, aka Child of the Rock, Satan. The Rothschilds, as the front men for the Khazarian Mafia, KM, infiltrate and hijack British banking and then hijack the whole nation of England. Bauer, Rothschild had 5 sons who infiltrated and took over European banking and the City of London central banking.
Do you see how easy this is? Like how that people are like, well, how can they do that? Because they own the money system, and they sponsor both sides of the war, and they make interest off of usury that 100 years ago, people like us would run these people out of town with that shit. Andrew Jackson did it. He shut down their program and put silver and gold back in the American people's pocket. And that traitor of a President FDR took us off gold and silver standard. Or was it Truman? One of them idiots did. I don't know. I wasn't born around